Buenos días.
Good morning and welcome to the conference entitled University for Families. Family is a fundamental part of education. The whole of society, including the parents themselves, should help and cooperate in the educational process for children. According to this philosophy, we are today with one of the brightest minds of the country, José Antonio Marina, philosopher, writer and pedagogue. He directs the Parent University Foundations, which is a group of projects including the University of Parents Online. He's launched different projects like the journal Energy Creator and Universe UP. He is the director of the Center for Innovation and Dynamic Studies in Education. He holds the Antonio Nebrija University Chair of Executive Intelligence and Education to study how to generate talent. He's a member of the Scientific Committee of the Alcohol and Society Foundation. And today it's his birthday. Thank you so much. I think it's a good start. Start a class by singing, it's the best thing we can do. We can continue singing. When we speak about children in childhood, I think that science has to join poetry. I always like to recall a Japanese haiku where an old man is answering the question of another old man. You ask me, what is happiness? A little girl has asked that to me on the way, and I told her what I thought. And before she disappeared, she turned around, smiling, and said goodbye with her hand. That is happiness. What this old man is saying is that, in fact, we have an impression of happiness as teachers, as parents, when we see our children grow and we're going to see them say goodbye with joy, and we will feel very, very joyful and happy because we've accompanied our children. I remember Rilke's poems, one of the elegies. He remembers when in the frightful nights his mother came to his bed and talked to him because she knew the secret of all noises, and the boy went to sleep peacefully. We're talking about the development and growth of possibilities. The child's brain is equipped with a fantastic property, which is plasticity. It means that as the child is learning things, his or her brain develops and forms and evolves. And this is a great challenge for educators. We need to help children to build his or her brain correctly, and then later to manage his or her brain. To explain what we know about this process, we need to ask ourselves various questions. We wish to develop our children's talents. I will explain why I chose this word, talent, and help also develop parents' talents, which is a special talent. You can have your talent as an engineer, or as an executive, or as a lawyer, but you need to develop other special talents for a specific task, which is educating and raising your children as a father or as a mother. That's why we need to explain what talent is. Some of you came to one of my talks, and I'm speaking about the same model again because I think it's the best model. What is talent? Talent is innate. Is it something that we learn? Why is it important to foster talent, and who should do that? And when answering to this question, in fact, it's parents, but not alone. What is talent? I'm going to explain why I use this word, which is not a word that has a scientific definition. In psychology, nobody speaks about talent. You can speak about high capacity, intelligence, competencies, abilities, skills, but talent is not a well-defined word. We should use this word or a similar one. I'm going to explain the reasons with an example. One of my students, he was 12, with a very high IQ, 145. He was a very good student, an extraordinary student. During the year, he realizes that he's more intelligent than his classmates and more intelligent than his teachers. That was probably true. He likes to give orders. He's the boss of a gang in the district, and this student who likes to have money, and he engages in bad activities, and he drops school. And I asked him why. I don't want to go to high school. Nothing useful is there for me in school. The best thing for me is to be in the street. Now this guy is 25 years old, and he's in prison for drug trafficking. And I'd like you to answer a question seriously. This guy is intelligent or not? He is intelligent or he's stupid? He's intelligent? Depending on what you mean by intelligence, you need to use two words. A person can be very intelligent indeed, and that was him when he was my student, according to all objective measurements of intelligence, and then this person can use his intelligence in a bad way. What is important to us here? Do we want him to be intelligent or to use his intelligence in an effective way? Well, if both things can happen, it's fantastic, but both things are not together, not united, not always linked. So I prefer to call intelligence all those objective skills that we can measure, and talent is how you use that intelligence. That's why talent is intelligence in action. What is the definition of talent? It's the ability of choosing well your goals. That's what my student did badly. He chose his goals in a bad way. And in such a way, he disfigured his skills and his intelligence because he's misusing his skills, and his goals were badly chosen. He could have become the Dillinger of Madrid. He could be the super murderer. He could be Jack the Ripper in Madrid. He is very intelligent, but he chooses his goals in a bad manner. And the more intelligence, the worse the results. So choosing well your goals. Then I need to look for the necessary information to attain those goals. And I need to manage my emotions and my motivation and all that helps me moving on. And then I need to develop the executive skills or qualities that will allow me to maintain my degree of effort, my energy, to be flexible, to know exactly if I'm in the right path or not. All those things I mentioned yesterday, which are the executive skills of intelligence. So talent is intelligence in action. So they're not talents in general or possible talents. This person had a great talent for football, but he didn't like playing football. He has not talent for football if he's never played. You only have talent for those things that have been applied or made or put into action. And this means that it's not enough to be intelligent. You need to use this intelligence in an effective way. This example is for my younger students. Maybe these students are going to tell this to their parents and they're going to think I'm a corrupter of children. Intelligence, human intelligence is very similar to playing cards, poker, for instance. Why? In life, but also in games, in card games, we are given cards that we cannot choose. In life, genetic cards, economic cards, social cards, the regional cards, family cards, and you get your cards and you can't choose them. Secondly, both in life as in games, there are good and bad cards. Third, what is better, to have good or bad cards? To have good cards is better. Fourth, and this is the important question here, if you have the best cards, do you always win? The person who wins is the person who plays better. That is education. In education, and I have to say, or at least I think about a child or a student, and yet I tell him, you have what you have. I'm going to teach you how to play with your cards in the best way possible for you with your cards. And that's my task. But, well, another example I mention often is the example of sailing. Who's the best? The one having the best boat, the best waves, or the best pilot? Who's the best in sailing? Well, the best pilot, the best skipper, because what the best skipper knows how to do was to organize forces that he cannot master, wind or waves. He uses that to direct his sailing boat to the goal. There's no good wind for those who don't know where to go. So you need first to choose your direction, and then you need to cheat the wind. There is a phenomenon, strategy in wind sailing, which is moving and exciting because it's the victory of cheating against reason. It's sailing against the wind. It's incredible. If the wind is pushing me back, how can I push the wind and sail against the wind? That is cheating against reason. And if I turn my sail, the wind is pushing there and I'm getting away from my direction. But in fact, I can turn and I can change my direction. I'm getting there by zigzagging, but I'm getting close to my destination. And without students, we need to sail against the wind. We need to learn how to use some of their limitations and see how we can getting closer to their goals and to our goals in such a way, in a slanting way. And we need to cheat the wind. We need to be rusing, and it's like playing cards.
La sorpresa absolutamente maravillosa.
Now there's a great surprise.
¿Qué es? Que al mismo tiempo,
at the same time, we are teaching them how to play cards, and this is a metaphor, when the child is learning and he or she uses his intelligence. And there's a prodigious loop, because this game improves his intelligence. If I play well with my cards, I could even change those cards. I can even change that. How is that possible? That's fantastic. That's plasticity. When a child starts at 5, and if we succeed in having this child using his cards in a perfect way, he's going to multiply his cards and his points from 5 to 9, from 9 to 20, and it's a marvelous process, the plasticity. What we are doing by using plasticity is increasing possibilities. we are increasing the power of cards. And this is a marvelous experience, literally, and we see it every day. But we got used to that. We don't really see it every day. Human intelligence can improve if we manage our intelligence in an effective way. So you can't really say there's a measure for intelligence. There's only the measure of possibility. You can stay there, you can stagnate, or you can progress. And this leads me to the second question. Talent, that is the capacity of using well your intelligence. Is that an innate, or is that something that you learn? One of the most interesting things happening now in science is that in the last years of the 20th century, these were the years of genetics. The genome was decoded. We know how it works. Since the DNA was discovered, we know a lot about the functioning of our genetic material. But the 21st century is going to be the century of epigenetics. What does it mean? We are born with a pre-established genome, but not all genes are activated. Or more technically, not all the genes are, express themselves. The fact of having your genes expressing or not depends on the environment of the person. And in that environment, we find education as an important element. So this concept of education is much more powerful and deeper than the one that we used in the past, because education does activate a certain number of genes that couldn't be activated by other means. And these genes allow you to develop skills and abilities. So we are physically generating more abilities and more skills. So when we speak about education, we are referring to the great transforming power of people who learn. When a child is born, he or she is born with a biological structure with a tremendous potential. At the end of the education is when we can say if this little girl or boy has developed his or her talent or not. Children are fantastic for learning. It's a fantastic machine for learning. But when in India there were these cases of wolf children, because they were taken by wolves and they were educated with wolves, and then they came back to society, and there was one, he was 13, and most of these children learned a lot with wolves because their brain was predisposed to learning, but they learned wolf behavior. They were on four legs. They didn't speak. They didn't develop as human beings, and it was very difficult to reintegrate those children in society because they lived like animals. It was very difficult to make them progress towards a normal human education. So with education, we can transform possibility into reality. Education, therefore, is talent generating. And why is it so important to foster talent? Our children are educated not to live in the world in which we live, but we are educating them for a future world, a world that we know very little. And there are at least 3 international consortia which are trying to define which should be the 21st century skills or competences, because we don't really know what we need to teach them. But there are 4 things that we know about our future world. We use an acronym, and if you've never heard it, maybe you've heard it. VUCA, V-U-C-A. You should remember this, because it's going to be significant in the future. I will explain where it comes from. What it means is that each initials is our next world in which our children and our teenagers are going to live. Volatile? Variability, it's going to change very fast, very quickly. Secondly, uncertainty, that's you. So uncertainty, because the more information we have about something, paradoxically, the more uncertain it becomes. We are managing and using a huge amount of data. All companies now are investing a lot of money in data mining, the big data. So we have huge amounts of information. The information that Google has about us is more than we can imagine, but then we don't know what to do. What big data people are doing is seeing if it's possible to find algorithms to manage massive amounts of data in a heterogeneous way. In the United States, Bill Gates Foundation has got an authorization to manage all the data of children's grades in school, of millions of children, in order to know what are the educational processes that are really efficient. But the increase in information does not clarify things for us. It's a saturating process for us. We are overwhelmed by data. So the third letter is complexity. C for complexity. What is happening in Greece is affecting us. And you know about this butterfly idea. The butterfly in China can produce typhoon in the Pacific or in the Atlantic. Scientists analyze how a small cause that can become a big cause because there is reiteration. That's why some phenomena are something that we cannot foresee. And the last letter is ambiguity. I cannot define patterns. I don't know what is happening. So there is a world in which our children are going to live, and we need to teach them in specific skills so that their intelligence can face up to the new problems, so that they can survive in new situations. They're going to have lots of opportunities, but if things continue as they are today, it's going to be a voracious world. If somebody doesn't take advantage of opportunity, this person is not going to survive. So we are the ones who need to decide what they should learn. Yesterday I said that education today is the core of our culture. Why? Who's going to decide what children should study in school? Politicians? They don't know. Scientists? Because scientists are specialists and they know about their own discipline. Priests? No, because this is not a religion. Not even parents. They would love to know what would happen in the future. So who decides? A class of people who in fact are the educational conscience of society. Education in the past was very typical. This generation should convey this message to the next generation, and we, teachers, were just channels to transmit that information to the next generation. In fact, we came from the domestic service. Old teachers were people called preceptors who worked in houses of rich people to teach the kids, and we were like servants. But now we have nobody to obey because nobody knows what to tell us. So those who are setting up ambitious curricula are precisely big IT companies. They're very clever people and with a lot of money. And Google wants to become the world's educator. Samsung wants to do that too. Apple, exactly the same. Microsoft is trying to. Who else? Cisco Systems. They're doing fantastic things. But they're interested by other things, not just our children. So we've compared their systems. In fact, they are sharing their functions. Apple is now has just asked Wilson, the anthropologist, he's a biologist, especially on ants. He is going to write a biology book, textbook for secondary students. A lot of millions have been spent by Apple for this project, and the result is quite disappointing. You can buy it for €9 in Amazon. You'll see the result. It's quite disappointing. But it means that these companies are spending millions. And what Apple wants to have textbooks that can only be used through their devices. They're trying something new, and we're going to see that, because children in schools are not only given a computer. That's not really important. Don't waste our time. What they're going to be given is an IT, customized, personal tutor who's going to accompany students during all the student's life. And this tutor is going to teach the child, and the child's memory is going to be in the computer, not in his head. In university chair courses, we have made great progress, and we're going to start with a new project which is called Centaurus project. In this project, we need to know what the child is learning and what are the things that the child needs to have in his mind or in his computer, because you need to know what you have to have in your own memory or in the computer's memory. Otherwise, everything will be in the computer and the child will be very awkward for things in life. I mean, if you can find it in Google, why do you need to memorize it, and why do you need to learn it? I worked in artificial intelligence since it was invented. I'm very in favor of technology, but I will say that donkey connected to the internet is still a donkey. So what is the solution? We need to have very intelligent people using the internet and using Google. And then this person can take advantage of all the marvelous wealth of information that is there in the internet. But that's the things that we need to choose. What is for you to have in your memory and what is for you to keep in your computer. So what type of intelligence we need to configure? We need to be very serious about this. In our lives, very soon we will have augmented reality. What is augmented reality? For instance, the Google Glass example. I can wear glasses, these Google glasses, and when I am walking in the street, I can receive all the information that I see and the information that I'm being sent in real time by my computer. For instance, who is around me that want to have a flirt? I will know that with my glasses. And what about the traffic? Or when was this building built? Any type of information that you can receive in your glasses. And this information is going to be so fast. There's a great temptation. I don't want to learn because this is going to come to me immediately. I don't need to learn. Yesterday, I went to Iberdrola for a conference. And in fact, last week I attended a meeting of big IT companies. And the director of one of the companies came to collect me at the airport. He's a Spanish guy. He's been working in the US, in France, in many countries. He speaks 4 or 5 languages. And he spoke about his children's school. And he told me, yes, I take them to a school, not a bilingual school. No. Why? I said, why? It's not going to be useful in the future. Why? I see the Google Translator processes is going to help us translate in real time all the documents, and the simultaneous translators are going to disappear because Google Translator will translate immediately into 90 different languages. So my children don't need to speak other languages because the machines are going to translate immediately for them, and we don't need to learn languages. So this is incredible. These are fantastic advances of technology, but this will require for us to adapt, and nobody's going to do that for us. We need to make this effort. We need to make these adaptations, and we need to know more about that. Not about IT, about physiology, not about technology. We need to know more about humility. We need to keep our wish and our effort, because we need to learn more, because we need to be able to learn more in the future.
So if we have a look around, there's no one who is going to do that if it's not done from education. Next, who should be in charge of educating children talent? Well, my foundation has called for the educational mobilization of society. What does that mean? The smartest thing I learned in education is this African sentence that goes like this: to educate a child, you need the entire tribe. Look, the child within different circles and contexts. First, we have the family, then the school, and then society at large. These three circles are exerting pressure on the child. The family from the closest place, then the school, and mostly society, because society has an impact on teachers, on parents, and on children. That is why informal education is so important, not only because of its impact on children, but also because of its impact on parents and teachers. I attended a conference with a paper on attention deficit disorder. My paper said, or asked, whether the consumption society had an impact on the increase of the deficit attention disorder. And so I was asking whether the message that publicity launches in terms of not having long-standing desires or pushing us to move fastly from one thing to the next. And so if we had or run a psychological test on publicity, the answer would be that it has deficit attention disorder. The same goes for Twitter. And now, if we don't receive new information in short time, we get anguish or anxiety. And the information has to be short. So no wonder that the attention deficit disorder is growing so much. It is only in 1.5% of cases physiological. The remaining 99% is due to a social disorder. Currently, we are seeing how the most important economy is the economy of attention. And all companies are trying to capture the attention of customers. And that has an impact on school, of course. In school, we need to notice how we are receiving so many impacts from society at large. But we are smart enough, and we will find a way to respond to that. The role of parents. Parents have their influence, of course, on their children. They should have a say on the school as well as on their environment. If parents want to educate their children, they have to exert pressure, so to say, on the educating agents that are educating their children, namely themselves, school, and the environment. And cooperation between families and school is very low in Spain, and so the effectiveness of schools drops. Parents also need to know that they have to try and have an influence on their environment, namely their children's friends. That is something I tell my students' parents. Are you concerned with your children's grades? Yes. All right. You should be concerned with the grades of your children's friends as well. Because if you're lucky enough and your child is in a good group, you can be assured that the group will educate your child. But if his or her friends are not good, you should move or transfer your child to a different school. Otherwise, the power of the group will be bigger than the influence you can exert. And so, at our university, our parenting university, we also say that parents should educate their children, but the environment and the school are very important as well. So, how to deal with this? This is what educational mobilization leads to. We have run different plans so as an entire city joins to solve an educational problem in order to fight the rates of dropping out of school. We didn't manage for cities to commit. Some were about to sign our agreement. We did all the job, all the work. We looked for funds, but they said no because it involved too much work. Our commitment was to bring school living down to the percentage established by the European Union. That is possible. There's no miracles in education, but there are ways to do things, and it's up to us whether we do it or not. And now the answer is no. Why? Due to laziness. Why should we change things if no one is complaining? And the worst thing here is that in all surveys done by the Spanish Statistics Institution, the concern about education does never come up. So the conclusion would be that everybody is happy with education. So, fine, the parents' role. What are the strengths we want for our children? Some might say that we won't agree, but I'm sure we will. I have met with parents from 25 different nationalities, with Muslims, with people from the East, with Hindus, and they all agreed pretty fast. What do we want for our children? Do we want them to be active or passive? We want them to be active, right? Why? Remember, those that attended my talk yesterday, how one of the important executive functions is managing activity, and that is essential. Why? Because passive children that become passive adolescents, passive teenagers, and passive adults will find many problems. They are dependent, they don't make decisions, and they are going to be depressed, pretty sure. So we want our children to be active. Do we want them to be autonomous or dependent? Autonomous. Do we want them to be to feel safe or not? So, what shall we do about it? And who should? I was lucky enough to draw some programs the way I believed that was correct. So, children should go on to secondary education having developed or solved some serious problems and having developed some competencies that otherwise he or she won't acquire in his education years. We have detected 3 and we have added 1/4. One has only to do with academics. No children should leave primary education without good reading competencies, because if they don't read, if they don't understand what they read, that is not something that he's going to be taught in secondary education. Shyness. If children don't solve their shyness problems, those problems are going to get worse in secondary education. What happens with aggressiveness? Aggressive children that don't learn how to control their aggressiveness before going to secondary education has very low expectations. A high percentage of those children move on to more severe aggressions. Some get along very poorly with their mates, and some others either become more aggressive or more depressive. What we are saying is that aggressiveness, well, we have a different scale. There's negativist personalities, then defiant negativists, starting at age 3-4, and it is something worrisome. And then some of them are aggressive, negativists, and defiant. And the age 8 is the age at which these traits start getting troubling or worrying. We give much importance to the last cycle of primary or elementary education. But you're right, of course. I was referring to feeling safe. We want that children, when they move on to secondary education, they feel safe. This notion is more important than self-esteem. So self-confidence is more important than self-esteem, since we know that criminal children have a very high self-esteem. The problem is with the lack of self-confidence. We want for children not to lack self-esteem, but by instilling confidence in themselves. So there are 3 levels here. First level, it is parents who should instill basic confidence on children. So children have to feel or build in their affective memory the idea that he or she is in a welcoming world, in a world that is going to cover his or her needs, and that he or she is in a predictable world. That is why routines are so important. Children need routines and limits. Those limits tell children that the world has some limitations, some frontiers, some borders, and children need to feel that his or her needs are going to be covered. But when children start preschool education or start dealing with other children or go on to elementary school, have to acquire some other types of confidence. Confidence in their ability to do things. This ability has to do with executive functions, and so keeping or on trying or choosing goals, etc., has to do with children feeling capable of doing things, because otherwise they quit in their endeavors. That is why I'm fighting for something that I have spoken about, Francesco Tonucci. We should claim a new right for children. All children are entitled to feel the experience of deserved success at some point in school. And what about if they are clumsy? That is us who have to organize tasks so as they can feel or say, I was capable, I was able. And that is so wonderful for children and for ourselves that they will try to repeat that experience. So they are hooked to that, and if children only hear that they are useless, then they won't try. They won't try. I'm useless. That is what they will feel. I was talking with Ana Isabel about math. Why are there so many children leaving elementary education feeling that they are not good at math? If they believe they are not good at math, that is something that is going to happen. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so we have to do just the opposite. We have two levels already. The basic confidence with parents, confidence in their own ability. Last year of primary education. Here we need to develop something I don't like how the name to refer, assertiveness. Children need to learn how to be independent, how to defend their opinions, and how to confront the group if necessary. With these three elements, the children get basic confidence that will help move on to secondary education in a good shape. When I was referring to basic confidence, this is linked to feeling safe, etc., but I won't elaborate. But we know at what stage the parents have to do this or that. The same goes for school, and how we all have to allow children to feel that they are entitled to be respected and that they have to respect others as well. These are the scales of, or the degrees of self-confidence. What do we want them to be, sociable or not? Courageous or brave or cowards? This is something that can be learned. We know it. Why? Do you remember how yesterday I think I have the graph here. I'll go back to this later. Creative or routine followers? Responsible or irresponsible? But responsibility has to be taught. We have programs to educate in responsibility, and that is something that has to be done early on. The notion of duty, children need to learn before going to elementary school. I remember how recently my grandchild, aged 12, was totally thrilled, came thrilled from school because he was at the older children's school, and he came home with some housework, and he was thrilled because for him it was going up in the social scale. Tenacious or unconstant, critical thinkers or fair, unfair. Justice is learned. Yes, all children have a clear idea of justice. That is why they say there's no right so soon, or it's unfair. And they know that rules protecting justice are much more important than conventional rules. It is, for them, they know it is worse to harm a child than to skip a line. To be more precise, the feeling of unfairness is developed very fast. It is much more precocious or earlier developed than that of justice. If we are asked what is unfair, we would say this, this, this. And if we are asked about justice, we would need to think farther. Are they capable of giving love or not? Not everybody is capable of loving. Some children have very hard hearts, and if we detect a child in preschool or in kindergarten that doesn't show empathy or sympathy with other children, that is something to be concerned about and to analyze. Generous or not? Well, generous, of course. This is what I wanted to show you. I might repeat things that I already said yesterday. Here we have the chart or this scheme of intelligence that we are using at our university. You can visit our website, universidaddepadres.es. Our intelligence is divided into two spheres that correspond to the frontal lobes and the remainder of our brain. At the lower part, there are constantly activities going on that we don't know how they work. We constantly learn things, link things, keep things, etc. One very small part of what's going on here, for instance, let's take this example. When someone starts walking, if I were to ask you to bring me a glass of water, you would stand up, go, get a glass, and come back. Have you considered each movement? No. You know how your feet or arms moved, how you kept balance? No, you don't. Your brain does. And your brain moves your muscles, corrects balance, and we just supervise it all, so that here in our motor system we are establishing some muscle schemes. Have you noticed in children development how they throw stones. Small children never throw stones. Until they do this move, many years go by, and they learn or acquire motor systems bit by bit, and once they have acquired them, they do that automatically. Affective systems are interpretation systems that are implanted in our brains, and when experience comes, this system interprets this experience, and the result is, I'm afraid. It works perfectly. The fearful usually get this conclusion. I have to speak in front of an audience. I feel fearful. I have to confront my boss. Same. I have to stay alone. The same. We don't know why do we feel that way and what to do about it. But it is well located, we know where it comes from, and we know why some children are fearful and why some others are brave. So we know that a part of that scheme is innate, because some children are born with a very low threshold of before any threat, and they are fearful in front of any event. But we can act and help children to learn some other affective habits. We know how fearful children learn easier fear habits, but we know that we can act there. We know that we have some 2 to 3 years, and therefore the parent's role is very important here for children that are clearly vulnerable, that don't like to go on exploring things, that are very hard to educate, because they are they're crying all the time, they are very anxious. So we have 2 to 3 years to adjust their how they feel or their mood. But we know that children can learn these new moods or temperament or nature. Fear helps learning, and we can feel tempted to use fear as an educational method, because fearful children are very docile, they are very easy to handle, and they are very well behaved. That is terrible, but that's the way it works. And so it is important to take this into account. Well, we know how it works. We know that being fearful depends on something at the bottom that has been shaped throughout experience and that now can be changed or can be adjusted. How? Through therapy. We know that a good therapy, a good linguistic therapy, can alter neuronal schemes, and we'll see how and we see how they shape or reshape the brain. We know that it all happens down here, and if experience comes through here, it is interpreted as fear, and the feeling of fear goes up consciously. In English, it is linguistically better defined. The emotion cannot be conscious, the feeling is. So the emotion might be here and the feeling up here. Okay, then the great transformation of intelligence comes. Starting from things we are aware of, we have developed our executive intelligence, our capacity to act on it.
Focusing our attention managing our emotions. And if we do manage our emotions here, we will change this in turn. Remember what I told you at the beginning, the prodigy loop. We know that this is the basic structure of intelligence, and I'm sure that it's going to be imposing in the future. It integrates all the best that has been done in psychology. When we talk about the subconscious here, we're not talking about the Freudian subconscious, but the things that we do in a cognitive way, because we don't know how we do them, but we do them anyway. How's your house's door? How's the door to your house? Do you have any problem? How did you do it? I don't know. From here, you gave an order to here. How's the door of my house? And from here, it went up again. Executive intelligence, I know how my door is and how it works. So it's easy. We are here, we are learning continuously here. This is the spontaneous memory. But we have invented another strategy. From here, I can decide what I can learn. I can build my own memory. And now we know that memory is organized in networks, or in fields, or in trees. Why do you believe that it's so useful to use semantic trees to teach your students? Because memory works in that way. If a notion can be integrated in a very dense tree, then we will have the many ways, many branches to get to the information. Now we are researching something that is called cognitive reserve or cognitive pool. It's very striking because neurologists have discovered when doing autopsies to healthy people that their brains had clear Alzheimer's, very deep Alzheimer's disease. If this person has had Alzheimer, why is that possible that there was no symptom in the person? Maybe there's a phenomenon that is replacing or avoiding Alzheimer's damage, which is called cognitive pool. It's linked to very high levels of education, and our interpretation of that is the following. When a piece of information is in a very dense network, even though the Alzheimer's disease is cutting half of the network, there are still many other branches that are operational in the network. Imagine that you have your mobile for communicating. You have telegraph, you have the post and the dove. And in the Alzheimer's disease is cutting you from mobile phone, from your landline and telegraph. You can't use those means of communication. I still have two other means, the post and the carrier pigeon. And these people do things slowly because the most elementary systems have been cancelled. But through education, they had more branches and they had new means of communications. They have dense trees, so they still have cognitive pools or cognitive reserves. So an important part of education here, and it sounds strange really, is to educate the subconscious. Educating on all operations that we're going to do automatically. And educating the executive intelligence, which will organize all the underneath part, the bottom part. Cognitive skills allow us to activate, manage motivation and emotions and action. This is automatic. This, on top, can turn your attention to a specific thing. If you don't teach your children to fix their attention, they will have their spontaneous attention at work. So there's an attention deficit because we didn't teach the child to use these systems, which are fantastic and very powerful indeed. So we're now telling the child and children and parents and teachers, and is that we need to use this model. And I have to stop here. So the executive intelligence gives orders to generational intelligence or generating agency through language. Executive intelligence is parallel to language. That's why we give our orders with language our whole life. What I'm going to do, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to ask myself questions, what I'm going to do next. Language is a great tool from here, from the bottom part. And everything was discovered by the best psychology genius in the 20th century. He was very badly known. He had bad luck. He died young. He didn't go to Harvard. Harvard took a long time to discover Vygotsky. Vygotsky is a powerful psychologist. He's a genius. He had a fantastic disciple, student, who discovered the structure, the neuronal structure, Mr. Luria, Dr. Luria, and between them, they made a great breakthrough in psychology. They gave us a more integrated vision of psychology. And we now understand what happens to a child during his growth and what happens in adults. And the best handbook of psychology from Wiley, publisher, 12 tomes, 12 volumes. In educational psychology, there was an edition published 10 years ago and another one 3 years ago. Almost everything has changed because 3 years ago, in the new edition, there are new chapters about Vygotsky, 4 chapters about Vygotsky. Now, so they are integrating Vygotsky's experiences in families and in schools. We now understand how to prepare our children, how to organize their cognitive system, their motor system, and how can we organize their affective system. And from here, we will have good occurrences appearing or emerging. What is a creative person? It's a person who has lots of ideas. What can I do with this? And many, many new things appear. What is a passive person? Here, there's orders, and here there's nothing emerging. Nothing is sprouting from there. So that's passive. I don't know if I had anything else to tell you, but I'm out of time. This is the end. Thomas Homer Dixon from Toronto said, we are facing many problems, and we're not sure that we are going to produce the talent we need to face up with those problems. I think we are able to do that. We are capable. I'm very optimistic, and I think if we try, we'll succeed. Thank you very much.